Hello and welcome to City Corner. I'm your host, Todd Blackstock. We have a fun show for you today as we have author and zookeeper Carolyn Mueller Kelly in studio to discuss her new book. And we have composer Mark Rodgers and musician Jason Nelson in studio. They're going to tell us about an exciting new rock opera coming to St. Louis, and it's going to premiere at the Delmar Hall. So stay with us for this and much more coming up next on City Corner. Our first guest today has been a zookeeper over at the St. Louis Zoo for over 20 years and has written a new book called Amazing Missouri Animals. Carolyn Mueller Kelly, welcome to City Corner.
Thanks for having me, Todd.
Yeah, how you doing today? Enjoying the great weather?
You know, started out strong and it's going downhill from there, I think, today.
Yeah, I tell you what, you've been at the zoo for over 20 years now, and that's got to be pretty exciting and something that you obviously love to do, and you have an uncanny love for animals.
I do, and we are so lucky in St. Louis to have such a wonderful zoo, for sure.
I mean, wouldn't you rank the St. Louis Zoo up there? I guess they always say the San Diego Zoo and the St. Louis Zoo kind of go back and forth each year. I guess number 1 and 2, or at least in the top 5. So what do you think attributed the St. Louis Zoo to being, so highly ranked and qualified every year?
You know, we are an older zoo. Obviously, we have over 100 years of experience. And I think we are a big player in the conservation world. We do a lot of really amazing conservation in the field as well. But I think what makes us really special is that the zoo is free. So we're accessible to everybody every day.
And now you do tours and things like that as well?
I do, yep. So I help manage the behind the scenes tours department right now. So I get to help introduce our guests to tortoises and rhinos and cheetahs, and it's really fun.
So is that something someone can just walk in and do, or would they want to call ahead and make sure that they have an appointment? You
book on our website, and they are really popular, so people usually book them a few months ahead of time.
My favorite thing about the zoo is the trolley. I really like, the little railroad trolley that takes you around.
That's my 7-year-old son's favorite too. He's been behind the scenes all over the zoo, and all he wants to do is ride the train. He loves the train.
Now, you've got another book. Now, you've written several books now. Can you give us a little background on your writing and some of the books that you've created and taken care of?
So the first book that I published actually was a zoo book. It was about Bubbles the dwarf zebu, who was a cow that lived in the children's zoo. I started my career as a keeper in the children's zoo, and so I really got to know the animals that live there, and I thought every animal is unique. Every animal has a special story, and so I wrote Bubbles to kind of connect the kids who visited the children's zoo with the animals that live there. That was over 13 years ago now. That was a while ago. So Amazing Missouri Animals is my 8th book. Wow. And most of my books are sort of regional interest about St. Louis or Missouri. But I have to say that this one, it might be my favorite. It's definitely one of my favorites because it's really in line with what I do at the zoo, what I've done at the zoo, and obviously I love animals, so it was really fun for me to write purely about some of the special species that we have here.
Neat. Well, let's talk about some of the species. I know there's a tremendous bird exhibit there, and birds have an uncanny sense that a lot of people might know about.
Well, it depends on the bird, right? So there's some birds in the book included that can't really smell at all. So great horned owls, for example, don't really have a sense of smell. So they're one of the few species that can actually hunt skunks. But the bird that you had on the screen right before this one, that's the turkey vulture. And that bird has one of the best senses of smell of any animal ever. And we have them here in Missouri. They're really common. You can see them this time of year, but they have to smell really well because they smell their prey or their carrion that they eat, roadkill essentially a lot of times, from miles away in the air. So they're able to do that, which is amazing.
And there's also an interesting reptile that can breathe out of both sides of its orifices, if I may.
Yeah, I think that's all the kids' favorite fun fact from the book is that.
The giggle on that one.
Yeah, we've got a lot of freshwater turtles in Missouri that can breathe out of their butts. Technically, it's the cloaca, which is sort of a turtle's all-purpose hole. It's where they lay eggs. It's where they go to the bathroom. And in the winter, when they're in that torpid state, in that hibernation state, they are able to filter oxygen through that. So they're technically breathing out of their butts, I guess.
Wow. Now, Missouri also has a lot of different snakes. We've got so many lakes and rivers and things that we're going to have a lot of snakes. Now, can you tell us about the different snakes that we have in St. Louis and the difference between poisonous and venomous?
Yeah, great question. So my husband is a snake guy, so he helped me with all the snakes in the book because he loves those types of animals. But a lot of kids grow up saying, oh, I don't like poisonous snakes, or I'm afraid of poisonous snakes. And it's really fun to say back, did you know that those don't actually exist? Because poison is something that's ingested. Like if you were to eat a poisoned dart frog, you would get sick. But venom is injected. So we have venomous snakes because they have fangs that can inject that venom. So we have 5 species of venomous snakes here in Missouri.
So how does it work with when you get injected with venom, then you die of poison?
Well, you die of venom.
So you die of venom.
Yeah, you die of
so
venom.
poison is just a misnomer.
It's just a different type of toxin. Yep.
Okay, and what should people look out for? Because there's a lot of friendly snakes too. You have garden snakes and things. And then, what kind of separates what you need to know if you're like taking a hike in the woods or the forest somewhere?
Great question. So a lot of venomous snakes, but not all, that's the important point. Not all, some venomous snakes have diamond-shaped pupils, while most non-venomous snakes have round pupils. But that's not a hard and fast rule. And also, you don't want to get close enough to check if you don't know what kind of snake it is. So my basic rule of thumb, especially this time of year, is if you don't know what kind of snake it is, leave it alone. They're not going to go after you. If you leave them alone, they will leave you alone. And in the book, we talk about our rattlesnakes that we have here in Missouri. That rattle sound might sound scary, but it's actually super helpful. They're warning you. They're telling you, they don't want to bite you. They're saying, get back before I bite you.
Now, there's many salamanders, and some of them have kind of cool names, like maybe from the hill.
Yes, that's definitely one of the best animals in the book is the hellbender, which is one of the largest species of salamander in the world. And we have 2 types here in Missouri. We have the Ozark hellbender and the Eastern hellbender. They go by some other names. They're called snot otters. They're called lasagna lizards.
Well, that's what I want.
Yeah, but hellbender is technically the name, and they got that name because, years and years and years ago when they were named, people thought that they looked like they came from hell and were hell-bent on returning. But I think they're cute. I think they're very cute.
Now, there's been a lot of bear sightings in Missouri as well, and it seems like, black bears are prevalent. Should people be afraid of bears when they're out? Because, I've got a little campground in Bonne Terre, and we have, bear sightings from time to time. There's like bears and mountain lions have been sighted. So, kind of watch out for yourselves.
Sure. So we have about 900 black bears in the state of Missouri right now. This is a topic that I do feel very passionate about. I've spent most of my career at the zoo as a carnivore keeper, and I think it's really important for humans to learn how to live alongside predators like bears. So bears can obviously be dangerous to humans or pets, but if you are bear safe when you're camping or when you encounter a bear, that will help mitigate those conflicts quite a bit. And actually our grizzly habitat at the zoo demonstrates some of the ways that you can camp safely around bears, like how to store your food and, you might not want to use fruity smelling deodorant or things like that. There's some common safety tips that you can follow.
So what are your favorite animals? What's your very favorite animal?
Well, like I said, I'm pretty partial to carnivores. So my favorite Missouri animal in the book, it's hard to pick, but I would say my favorite is the coyote. I grew up with coyotes in my backyard. I was always fascinated by them as a kid. And coyotes kind of got me started in my writing career. When I was a little kid, I wrote a really long story about a coyote, and so they'll always have a special place in my heart.
So I'm looking at some talking points. Opossums are a very interesting animal, and they say that they've got a lot of teeth.
They have 50 teeth, so they're a dentist's dream is what we like to say. And they're Missouri's only, North America's only marsupial. So I think we grow up loving kangaroos and koalas, but I think we should also grow up loving opossums. They are our marsupial.
People get scared of them and stuff, and they see them in the middle of the night, and then they roll over and play dead. Yeah. Then we've got beavers and woodchucks who really like to eat on wood.
That's true, yeah. And this is the time of year to keep your eyes peeled for woodchucks because they are one of Missouri's only true hibernators. So when they start to wake up, that's when we know it's really spring. And I'm happy to announce that I saw my first wild woodchuck in Forest Park last week. So
No kidding.
spring is here.
I
Yeah.
hear beavers are pretty amazing what they can do with their jaws and their teeth and just making dams and things. And another one is moles.
Yeah.
You know, most people hate moles. You know, like I hate them when they're in my yard. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's tearing up my yard. But it actually can be helpful.
Yeah, so moles are, I think, really cute. They help us out in our gardens by eating all of the creepy crawlies that might potentially do harm to your garden. So, they're insectivores, so that's what they do is they eat bugs, they eat insects. And I always kind of like to remind people that moles have been on the planet for a very, very long time, much longer than our manicured lawns, right? So they're just doing their job.
Before we let you go, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with Reedy Press and what you're most excited about your book and where we can find it?
Yeah, so the book just came out, so I'm having fun taking it all over the place. I've taken it to schools and libraries. I'm going to be at Barnes & Noble this weekend. So you can find it pretty much wherever books are sold. I have a website, CarolynElizabethMueller.com, where you can buy it if you want a personalized copy. But yeah, it's been fun to promote.
All right, any final thoughts before we let you go? Anything that you wanted to say that you didn't get in?
I would say, the book is all about celebrating Missouri animals. I think it's really important for kids to grow up knowing what's in their backyard. And once you know it, then you learn to love it and you learn to protect it. And that's kind of the mission behind the book.
There you go. www.reedypress.com is where you can get it. And thank you so much for joining us today, Carolyn. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And good luck. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, but stay with us as composer Mark Rodgers and musician Jason Nelson will join us on the flip side to discuss an exciting new rock opera coming to St. Louis.
Did you know that you can watch STL TV on your smartphone or tablet? That's right, STL TV is available on your Android or iOS mobile devices. And that includes our live broadcast channels as well as video on demand content. It is really easy to get started. Just find the App Store on your device, then search for Cablecast. Select it and click to install. Launch the app, and if you're in the St. Louis area, STL TV should be the first channel to show up. If you're not in the area, you may have to scroll down to find it. So just click on the STL TV logo, and in just a few seconds, you're enjoying STL TV's great programming such as City Corner, Inside Sports, City Government, What's the 314, or my personal favorite, In the Kitchen.
And welcome back to City Corner. I'm Todd Blackstock. In our second segment today, we've got composer Mark Rodgers, musician Jason Nelson with us to tell us about an exciting new rock opera coming to St. Louis. Mark, thanks a lot for joining us. Jason as well, and talking to you guys before the show. Boy, it sounds like Jason's quite a musician around town, and you've got a lot of compositions and cool stuff under your belt, Mark.
Yeah, it's really cool. First of all, we are thrilled to be here, number one. So thanks so much for having us. But it's really kind of interesting, the story. I've been writing this rock opera for like 4 years. And it actually started out to be a musical. I actually wanted it to be a musical, but musicals, as you may know, are so expensive to put on. And you need millions and millions of dollars. And this friend of mine said that we sent these friends of mine out to the West Coast and these songs, and they said, these songs are kind of standalone, Mark. He goes, you ought to make a rock opera out of them. And so I needed a rock opera. Well, I needed a band. And the coolest part about it is my girlfriend and I were around here I guess about a year and a half ago. And we just love music. We love to go out. We do everything. And we heard about this incredible performer and everything called Jason Nelson doing this a Queen tribute. And so he said, let's go out and see this. There's this venue out by St. Charles. And so we went out there. That's how we kind of met. So he just bought a ticket and went in. And when the show started, Mr. St. Louis entertainer comes on the stage, blows the audience away. And I'm sitting there about halfway through the show, and I looked over to my girlfriend, and I said, you know who this guy is? And she says, I know exactly who he is. I said, who is he? He goes, he is your Nikola Tesla.
No way.
And I said, yes, he is. So I waited to the end of the show, and Jason was walking around and, greeting the audience or whatever. And I walked up to him and I said, hey, Jason, you don't know me, but I'm a producer. We do this show called Da Vinci Michelangelo Experience, and we tell the world, and we were off Broadway for over 100 shows. But I said, I'm writing this opera, this rock opera by Nikola Tesla. And he looked at me and goes, yeah, why are you telling me this? I said, because I want you to be Nikola Tesla. And without it, he didn't hear the music, he didn't hear anything. He said, I'm in.
I'm in, just like that. So Jason, what kind of, I read that you like Queen and the Police, Sting, Solo, things like that. Do you think that, I guess your style of music and things like that with the Jason Nelson Band fit right into this rock opera?
It's everything that culminated to this point, that built to what we in the band are going to bring to the stage at Delmar Hall. The music, the thoughts behind it, it's very thoughtful music. It rocks. It really does. And I'm honored to be asked to perform it.
But there's so many different, the thing I love about Jason and his band is we cover so many different styles of music in the rock opera. We have jazz, we have country, we have Broadway.
It's a lot of pivot.
And so there's going to be something in this show and these songs that you are going to love. And we have something for everybody. We cover every genre possible.
Well, fantastic. Well, you know what? Right now, let's take a look. We've got a little reel from the big rock opera. Light it up right here.
With no hallucinations, only a receiver to the great unknown, a celestial connection on a cosmic phone.
Pretty cool little tease there, Mark and Jason. I'm pretty excited about, listening more about this because I was doing a little research on Nikola Tesla, and he invented the AC. And I know there was talks about him and Thomas Edison had similar paths, but there couldn't be more different. Mark.
Couldn't be more different. Well, that is one of the greatest, in my investigation, it was one of the most incredible stories about the AC and the DC, that Edison was beat out by Tesla to light the 1893 Columbian Exhibition in Chicago. And when Edison did not get that bid, he was mad as can be. In fact, he was so upset, he refused to sell Tesla and Westinghouse's incandescent bulb that they needed to light the Midway, the court of honor, at the World's Fair. So Tesla and Westinghouse had to invent basically a new light bulb overnight. They called it the double stopper light bulb, and it got them through the exhibition. But as we know, Thomas Edison's incandescent bulb won out in the long run. But the interesting part about this show, about that is, Nikola Tesla was in Chicago on May 1st, 1893 in Chicago. And he literally threw the switch that lit up 200,000 light bulbs at once. Wow. They said it was the greatest display of lighting the history of the world had ever seen. And do you know who was in the crowd that night in the Midway? They called the Court of Honor. Do you know who was in the crowd that night? I'll put you on the spot here. Who was that witnessed this? His name was L. Frank Baum. Okay, who was L. Frank Baum?
Albert Einstein?
No, he was a writer.
Okay.
What did he write?
I don't know.
The wonderful Wizard of Oz.
No kidding. Oh, yeah. That's
He
right.
was in the crowd that night, and he witnessed Nikola Tesla throwing the switch that up 200,000 light bulbs at once. They said it was the greatest display of lighting the history of the world had ever seen. So when he wrote The Wizard of Oz at the turn of the century, that became his inspiration for the Emerald City. So we can say, without fear of any reprisal whatsoever, that Nikola Tesla truly is the original Wizard of Oz. And we actually have a song and that I wrote in that. And the name of the song is "I Am the Original Wizard of Oz." The wizard, the electrical god. I am the man behind the curtain.
Wow, that's amazing. And when I was thinking about that, when you're talking about Tesla lighting up all that stuff, it reminds me of the Sphere in Las Vegas. Right. And that just opened up a couple of years ago. A friend of mine helped, install all the lights and that. It took a long time. And the Wizard of Oz performed there recently. So it's almost like coming full circle.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What do you think about that, Jim? Look at Jason in here.
Yeah. Seeing that show at the Sphere last week, drawing the correlation between this story and how the origin of this story is, this show is captivating to me, to the band. I think that it's going to be a raving.
Well, that's my goal. It's funny you mentioned that, because that is my goal, is to have this show at the Sphere in Las Vegas.
No kidding.
Can you imagine the lightning and what would happen there?
Yeah,
it'd be monumental.
Right, and you launched it right here in St. Louis and Forest Park and the Dogtown area. We got the CBC guy here. And let's talk about Jason's band real quick, and we'll get back to that. I do want to give some love to some of the other guys in your band. I mean, you're the lead, you're the front man.
Thank you.
But who are some of the other guys in the band that are so instrumental in your success with this project?
There's Alonzo Jameson on drums, Charlie Brown on keyboards, Stacy Rios on cello and vocal, Mark Hochberg on violin, Richard Mendoza on bass, and the guitar player is Steve Johnston.
Okay.
And that rounds out our
That's
8-member ensemble.
And Mark, you're like the composer, you're the performer, the lead man for the band, and it seems like you have quite a symbiotic relationship, and it's working out pretty good.
And they are going to hear a wall of sound.
Coming at you.
They got to a wall of sound. The interesting thing about it, it's kind of a new story. Just being here in St. Louis, it's kind of a new story. We have an interesting connection with Nikola Tesla here. He always needed money. And it was always the next project, he always needed money. And he actually created his own roadshow, where he had cork shoes on, and he would go on the stage himself, and he had lightning coming out of him and through him, and he would reach his hands out. Well, anyway, it was very successful, and his last show was right here in St. Louis. It was at St. Louis Exhibition Hall, and it was where the St. Louis Public Library is now. And he was kind of an internal guy, and he was very internal guy. And when the show ended, everybody just wanted to touch him. They just wanted to be with him. And he walked on the lobby, and everybody just came toward him. And that was the last show he ever did. So the last show that he ever did was right here in St. Louis.
Wow. We got like a couple minutes left here, and there was another little reel we wanted to sneak in a little bit of, a little highlight reel. So we'll send it over that for maybe 30 seconds or 40 seconds.
That'd be great. Colorado Cosmic Cowboy. This is my favorite.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Head west to Denver, south to the Springs, up close to the power source of what only nature brings. With my rope of wire to lasso electric, riding by while prospectors are panning for gold, I'll be mining the sky. Pikes Peak to Paris at lightning speed, conducting the cosmos, playing my sound.
Wow, just a little tease right there.
Wow.
Mark. That's pretty cool.
Now we have 13 of those cinematic storytelling videos that are going to be playing behind Jason and his band. So it is going to be a multimedia immersive experience.
And this is one of the first shows, the
This
Delmar
is
show.
the first show. This is the
So this is
world
the
premiere.
launch, huh?
This is the launch.
Jason, how excited are you to launch this new rock opera
Again,
at Delmar Hall?
Thrilled. And I think it's going to be adopted widely, not only here in St. Louis, but this is the world premiere. It's going to be across
Plus,
the
you're going to have the success. Are you going to have all the support from the Blueberry Hill and Joe Edwards and the pageant and all the people in the music scene in St. Louis that really make it thrive, because St. Louis is a hotbed for music talent.
Yeah, we love it. We are so happy to be here. We're so happy to be at the Delmar Hall. I am thrilled, ecstatic that the Jason Nelson Band is performing.
So this is going to be, before we go, we're wrapping it up on June
20th,
20th.
7:30, Delmar Hall. Be there.
Be there.
And we are going to light it up.
Sounds like a Doors song or something like that. Anyway, light my fire. Well, anyway, hey guys, thanks a lot for joining us. We really appreciate you coming in. You know, Mark Rodgers, Jason Nelson, it's been a privilege having you, and good luck. And I can't wait to see the results and see the show, and and how it all turns out. And maybe someday you'll be at the Sphere. Yeah. All right. Well, that's our show for today. We'd especially like to thank our studio guests for joining us today, and we'd like to thank you for watching City Corner on STL TV. Experience St. Louis.